That was the last straw for me. My husband saying just like that to my face, "Either you accept my friend from the battalion, or we're done." How could he say that to me? And in front of his family, no less, after I swallowed so many bitter pills all these years. Maybe it's better this way, I thought at that moment. Accept a friend? What friend? A serious man, a married man, doesn't have female friends. I accepted everything up until now, but this was too much. But let me go back a bit. Let me tell you how I got to this point, because none of this happened out of nowhere. My name is Bridget. I'm 32 years old, and I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. I work at a flower shop here in the neighborhood, making arrangements, taking care of plants, those kinds of things. I've always loved flowers, creating beautiful things with my hands. It's simple work, but it's good for me. At least it used to be. I've been married to Marlon for 7 years. He's military, or rather he was. Served in the Army for years, now works as a security consultant. Everyone loves Marlon. Seriously. The neighbors, the friends, his family, everyone thinks he's perfect. The exemplary husband, the family man, the provider. But living with someone is different from admiring them from a distance. And I was tired of being the only one who knew that. The night that changed everything was a Thursday in October. Nothing special on the calendar, just another day I thought would end like all the others. Marlon had told me on Tuesday that his parents were coming for dinner on Thursday. Didn't ask if I agreed. Just informed me. He was going to prepare everything himself, make a point of showing he was the perfect host. When I got home after work, the house was already set up. Table set, food in the oven, wine opened. Marlon was finishing putting on a blue dress shirt. The one he knew looked good on him. He gave me a quick kiss on the forehead like an automatic greeting and said, "Take a quick shower. They'll be here in half an hour." I didn't say anything. Just went upstairs, showered, put on a simple black dress, and came down. Diane and Walt, his parents, had already arrived. Diane greeted me with that too-tight hug, and Walt waved from the living room. Sarah, Marlon's sister, arrived right after, straight from work, with the face of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. But every now and then she'd look at me that way, judging me as if I were guilty of something. Dinner started normal. Conversation about Marlon's work, about the renovation his parents were doing on their house, about the weather. I smiled, nodded, pretended I was present. But my mind was far away. It was on the phone that vibrated in my pocket during the appetizer. It was Amanda. "The girls are already here at the club. You coming or not?" My heart raced. That kind of acceleration you feel when you know you're about to do something that'll cause problems, but at the same time, sets you free. I didn't answer right away. I put the phone away and went back to pretending attention to the conversation, but a few minutes later I couldn't anymore. Couldn't keep listening to Diane talking about her mashed potato recipe that was better than mine. Couldn't keep watching Marlon gesturing, telling stories where he was always the hero. Couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I stood up in the middle of dessert. The chair scraped on the wooden floor, and everyone stopped talking. I grabbed my purse from the sideboard. "I'm going out. The girls are waiting for me." The silence was immediate, heavy. Marlon lowered his fork slowly, that controlled way of his that always came before the explosion. "Excuse me? I'm going to meet my friends. I won't be long." He took a deep breath, forcing a strained smile. "Bridget, we have guests here. You have guests, Marlon. Your parents came to see you, not me." Diane interfered, of course. "Dear, we came to see both of you. We're a family." I was already grabbing my coat. That bright red one I'd bought last week that made me feel beautiful. "Then enjoy the family. I'll be back later." Marlon stood up and his tone changed, became firm, authoritative. "You're not leaving in the middle of dinner, Bridget." I stopped. Looked at him, and for the first time in a long time I didn't lower my head. "Yes, I am," and I left. The door slammed behind me with a sound that echoed through the cold Charlottesville night. I didn't look back, not when I heard Diane's muffled voice making some comment. Not when I felt the weight of what I'd just done. I just walked down the porch steps and took a deep breath. Because for the first time in years, I was doing something just for me. If you've ever felt like you were suffocating in your own marriage, you definitely understand me. So before we continue, subscribe to the channel and stay with me, because this story is just beginning. The drive to the Black Lantern felt like driving off a cliff. Every mile away from that house, from Marlon's silence, from Diane's judgment, I felt lighter. Amanda had texted me the address days ago, and I'd saved it without really believing I'd use it. But here I was, parking 2 blocks away, checking my makeup in the rearview mirror like I was preparing for battle. The club was exactly what Marlon would hate. Loud, crowded, full of people who didn't care who anyone's husband was. Amanda was already there with 2 friends, Jessica and Marie, and when she saw me, she pulled me into a hug that felt like permission. "You came. I'm so glad." She handed me a drink, something cold that burned going down, to doing scary things. I clinked my glass against hers and drank. The alcohol hit fast, or maybe it was just relief. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. We talked. The 4 of us squeezed into a booth, and I found myself laughing at Jessica's stories about her disaster dates, at Marie's commentary on human psychology. Amanda kept checking on me with her eyes, making sure I was okay. And I realized this was what friendship felt like when it wasn't Diane's church group dissecting my life choices. That's when I saw him across the bar. Dark hair, gray shirt with rolled sleeves, leaning against the counter like he belonged there. When his eyes found mine, something shifted in my chest, Amanda noticed. "That's John, friend of a friend. Want to meet him?" Before I could answer, he was walking over. Tall, easy smile, the kind of confidence that didn't need to prove anything. "You look lost," he said. "Maybe I am. Or maybe just found." He glanced at Amanda. "Mind if I steal her for a dance?" My brain screamed no, but my mouth said yes. His hand found my waist, and my heart kicked against my ribs like it was trying to escape. We moved together, and I didn't think about Marlon or vows or consequences. I just felt alive. 3 songs later, we were still there, his arms around me, my face against his chest. He smelled like cedar and something clean, and when I looked up at him, he was already looking down. "You're trouble," I said. "So are you." I should have walked away right then, but I didn't. Amanda found me around midnight, said she was heading out. John walked us to the car, slipped me his number on a napkin. "In case you want to get lost again." I took it, folded it carefully, and put it in my wallet next to my wedding ring that suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Marlon was waiting when I got home, arms crossed, jaw tight. We fought, or rather, he talked at me about disrespect and priorities while I stood there feeling nothing. He finally went to bed angry, and I sat in the bathroom staring at John's number, knowing I'd already decided to use it. 3 days later, I texted him. We met at a cafe on the far side of town. John was already there with 2 coffees, and when I sat down, he smiled like I was exactly who he'd been waiting for. We talked for hours. About his photography, my flower shop dreams I'd buried under Marlon's plans. About his divorce, my dying marriage. And when he asked why I stayed, I couldn't give him a good answer. "You deserve better than just surviving," he said quietly. We started meeting regularly. Tuesday coffee, Thursday lunch, Saturday morning walks when Marlon was working. John texted me good morning before Marlon woke up, good night after he'd gone to bed. Nothing inappropriate, just attention. 3 weeks in, we met at Ravenna Trail. Marlon was at the office. Diane had stopped by earlier to criticize my housekeeping, and I needed air. John was waiting at the trailhead in his canvas jacket, hands in pockets, and the sight of him made my chest tighten in ways I'd forgotten existed. We walked for a while, talking about nothing and everything, until he stopped and turned to face me. "When do you get to matter, Bridget?" And just like that, I was crying. Not pretty tears, but ugly sobs that came from somewhere I'd kept locked for years. He didn't try to fix it, just pulled me close and let me fall apart in the rain that had started without me noticing. When I finally looked up, soaked through, his hands still on my arms. I saw something in his eyes that terrified and thrilled me. I don't know who moved first. Suddenly his lips were on mine, and my heart was hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. This wasn't the obligatory kisses Marlon gave me. This was urgent and real and felt like coming home. When we pulled apart, both breathing hard, he touched his forehead to mine. "I'm not sorry." "Good. Don't be." I drove home in wet clothes, sat in my driveway for 10 minutes, and walked inside to find Marlon barely looking up from his phone. I felt nothing. Not guilt, not regret, just the cold certainty that I'd already left this marriage. I just hadn't moved out yet. That night, after Marlon fell asleep, I checked my phone. A text from John, "Thinking about you," and one from an unknown number on Marlon's phone screen lighting up on the nightstand. "Can't wait to see you in Richmond. Miss you." Kay. My blood went cold. Kate? Who the hell was Kate? I screenshotted it before I could stop myself. My hands were shaking. Marlon stirred but didn't wake. I deleted the screenshot notification and went back to bed, but I didn't sleep. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, realizing my husband might be hiding secrets too. I didn't tell John about Kate's text right away. Part of me wanted proof before I accused Marlon of the same thing I was doing. The other part was too busy falling deeper into something I couldn't control. Marlon left for Richmond Monday morning. 3-day security assessment, he said. I waited until his truck disappeared, then texted John. We met at his apartment, and I told myself we'd just talk, set boundaries, figure out what this was. But the moment he opened the door, all my carefully rehearsed words evaporated. "I missed you," he said. It had been 4 days. His apartment was small but lived in. Photos on walls, books stacked everywhere, plants that actually survived. It looked like a real person's home instead of the showroom Marlon insisted we maintain for guests who never came. We sat on his couch, and I started to say something about being careful, about not letting this go too far. But he cut me off gently. "I won't apologize for wanting you, but I won't push you into anything either. If you want to walk away, I'd understand." I thought about Marlon in Richmond. Probably with Kate. Thought about 7 years of living someone else's life. Thought about that kiss in the rain and how alive it made me feel. I don't want to walk away. His kiss tasted like coffee and second chances. We spent that afternoon on his couch talking between kisses, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. He showed me his photography portfolio, the real stuff he didn't show clients. I showed him photos of my flower arrangements. He asked why I wasn't running my own shop. Money. Timing. Marlon's career comes first. That's not a reason. That's an excuse. He was right. They were all excuses. I'd been making them so long I'd started believing them. The next 2 days, I lived in 2 worlds. Florist by day, wife on paper, but really I belonged to those stolen hours at John's apartment. We cooked together, watched movies neither of us paid attention to, and on that second night when he kissed me and I didn't pull away, I crossed the last line I'd been holding. Later, lying in his bed with dawn starting to color the windows, I felt my phone buzz. Marlon. Headed home. See you tonight. My stomach dropped. The real world was crashing back in. John felt me tense. You okay? I was. That was the problem. I was more than okay here, which meant I was completely wrong there. That night, Marlon came home with his news about DC. Better job, permanent position, we'd have to move. He was excited in a way I hadn't seen in years, and I knew. This wasn't about a fresh start with me. This was about being closer to whoever Kate was. When he mentioned running into her, his old battalion friend now working at the same building, my suspicion hardened into certainty. And when he said she'd invited us both to dinner this weekend, I agreed. Because I needed to see her with my own eyes. I needed to know if my husband was as much of a liar as I was. Friday night, I sat in Marlon's truck on the way to Richmond watching him get progressively more animated. He'd been in a good mood all day, almost giddy, like a teenager going on a first date. with his wife sitting right next to him. The restaurant was expensive Italian, the kind he usually said we couldn't afford. Kate was already there, and the moment I saw her, my stomach turned. Beautiful in that effortless way. Expensive jewelry, confident posture, and when Marlon hugged her, when her hand stayed on his arm too long, I knew I'd been right. She shook my hand with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. So nice to finally meet you. Marlon talks about you all the time. The lie sat heavy between us. Dinner was torture. She talked about their battalion days with inside jokes I wasn't part of. About missions I'd never heard of. About how excited she was that he might move closer. And I watched how she touched his arm when she laughed. Watched how his eyes kept finding hers. Watched how they moved around each other like two people who'd done this dance before. I excused myself to the bathroom, gripped the sink, and tried to breathe. My phone showed a text from John. "How's dinner?" I typed back, "Pretty sure my husband is having an affair. Are you sure?" I looked at myself in the mirror, at the wife who'd been so carefully blind. "Yeah, I'm sure." When I got back to the table, I finished dinner with a smile plastered on my face. Watched them make plans that didn't include me. And when we finally left, Marlon talking about how great Kate was, I felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, just cold clarity. We got home around 11. Marlon went straight to bed, and I waited 15 minutes before grabbing my keys and driving to John's apartment. I told him everything. About Kate's hand on Marlon's arm. About inside jokes and familiar glances. About how my husband had probably been cheating longer than I had. "What are you going to do?" John asked. "I'm done pretending." My voice was steady. "If he wants to move to DC to be closer to her, fine. But he's going alone." The irony wasn't lost on me. I was standing in another man's apartment planning to confront my husband for cheating while I'd spent the last week in that same man's bed. We were both liars. Both cheaters. Both pretending at a marriage that had been dead for years. But at least now I could stop pretending I was the only one who'd given up. Over the next week, I started paying attention. Really paying attention? Marlon's phone that he suddenly kept face down. The way he'd step outside to take calls. The smile he'd get when certain texts came through. And one night, when he was in the shower, I went through his phone. Messages from Kate going back 2 years. "Miss you. Can't wait to see you again. Tell her you're working late." Photos I deleted from my mind as soon as I saw them. 2 years. He'd been lying to me for 2 years. I took screenshots of everything, sent them to my email, and put his phone back exactly where I'd found it. My hands were shaking, but not from hurt, from rage. From the realization that while I'd been drowning in guilt over a few weeks with John, Marlon had been living a double life. Amanda noticed something was off when we met for coffee. I told her everything. About John, about Kate, about the evidence. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to divorce him. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows why." If you've ever been caught between exposing someone else's lies and protecting your own, you know this impossible feeling. Leave your like if you are enjoying it, because this is about to get messy. I waited 3 days before confronting Marlon. 3 days of living with screenshots of his affair on my phone while pretending everything was normal. 3 days of him coming home from work, kissing my forehead, asking about my day like he hadn't been texting Kate that he missed her. The irony of my rage wasn't lost on me. I was furious about his 2-year affair while hiding my own weeks-old relationship with John. But somehow, in my head, it was different. He'd been lying first. He'd pushed me to this. He'd made our marriage a joke before I ever walked into that club. At least that's what I told myself at 3 in the morning when guilt tried to creep in. I chose Sunday morning for the confrontation. Diane and Walt were supposed to come for brunch, but I'd canceled, told them I had the flu. Marlon was in the kitchen making his famous French toast, humming along to some playlist. Looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in months. "We need to talk," I said from the doorway. He looked up, spatula in hand. "About what?" "About Kate." His whole body went rigid. Just for a second, before the military training kicked in and his face became a careful mask. What about her? How long have you been sleeping with her? The spatula clattered into the pan. What? Bridget, that's insane. She's just a friend from 2 years. I held up my phone, showing him one of his own text messages. You've been having an affair for 2 years, Marlon. Don't you dare lie to me. I watched the color drain from his face, watched him cycle through denial, then anger, then calculation. He turned off the stove, set the spatula down carefully, and when he looked at me again, his expression was cold. How did you get my phone? That's what you're worried about? Not that you got caught, but how? You had no right, and you had no right to make a fool out of me. My voice cracked, and I hated that it did. 2 years, Marlon. While I was here playing the perfect wife, dealing with your mother's criticism and your sister's judgment, and waiting for you to come home from trips where you were with her. He crossed his arms, leaned back against the counter. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The stress of my job, of taking care of everything here. Don't you dare try to make this my fault. I'm not. I'm just saying you don't understand what it's like. His jaw tightened. Kate gets it. She was there in the field. She knows what it's like to what? To justify cheating on your wife. I was shaking now, but not from sadness. From pure rage. You wanted to move to DC to be closer to her. That's what this whole thing was about. He didn't deny it. Just stood there, and his silence was more damning than any confession. I want a divorce, I said. Fine. His voice was sharp. You want a divorce, we'll get a divorce. But don't think you're walking away with everything. I've supported you for 7 years. That flower shop job barely covers your car payment. I don't want your money. Good. Because you're not getting it. He grabbed his keys from the counter. I'm going out. When I get back, I expect you to have calmed down so we can discuss this like adults. He walked past me, shoulder brushing mine, and I heard the front door slam. His truck engine roared to life, and then he was gone. Probably to Kate's. Probably to tell her I knew, to strategize their next move. I stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the half-cooked French toast congealing in the pan. My phone buzzed. A text from Marlon. We'll talk when I get back. But you need to think about what you're throwing away. I deleted it and called John. He knows I know, I said when he answered. I confronted him. How did he take it? About as well as expected. Defensive? Then angry? Then calculating. I sank onto the couch. He's probably with her right now. John was quiet for a moment. Are you okay? Was I? I'd just blown up my marriage, exposed my husband's affair, and demanded a divorce. But I also had John's number still saved as Amanda Friend in my phone, had been lying just as much as Marlon, and had screenshots of my own I couldn't explain without confessing everything. I don't know, I admitted. I thought I'd feel relieved. But I just feel numb. That's normal. You're in shock. Yeah. I looked around the living room, at the neutral walls and careful decorations that had never felt like home. I need to find a lawyer. Do you want me to come over? I did. Desperately. But Marlon could come back any minute, and I wasn't ready for that explosion yet. Not yet, but soon. After we hung up, I sat in the silence and realized I'd just started a war I wasn't sure I could win. Because Marlon was calculating and methodical, and he'd fight dirty if he had to. And I had my own secrets that could blow up in my face, but I was done pretending. Done being the good wife while he made a fool of me. If this was going to get messy, so be it. At least it would finally be honest. Marlon came home 6 hours later. I'd spent that time calling lawyers, none of whom could see me until the following week, and packing a bag in case I needed to leave quickly. When I heard his truck in the driveway, my whole body tensed. He walked in calm. Too calm. That's how I knew he'd been planning. I talked to Kate, he said, setting his keys on the counter like this was a normal conversation. She helped me see things more clearly. I'm sure she did. Bridget, I'm willing to forgive what you did. Going through my phone, violating my privacy, If we're going to move forward, we need to rebuild trust. I actually laughed. You're willing to forgive me? I'm not saying what I did was right. But relationships are complicated. People make mistakes. He moved closer, and I forced myself not to step back. We can get through this. Counseling, maybe. A fresh start in D.C. With Kate 20 minutes away? She's agreed to keep her distance if that's what it takes. His hand reached for mine, and I pulled away. I love you, Bridget. I made a mistake, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. He didn't love me. He loved the idea of not losing in a divorce. Loved keeping his perfect life intact while maintaining his affair on the side. And he thought I was stupid enough to fall for it. I've already contacted a lawyer, I said quietly. His expression hardened. You're serious about this? Completely. Fine. He stepped back, and the warmth in his voice evaporated. But you should know I've been documenting everything. Your spending, your hours away from home, your new friends you've been so secretive about. His eyes narrowed. If you want to play hardball, Bridget, I can play harder. My stomach dropped. How much did he know? Had he been watching me? Following me? I have nothing to hide, I said, but my voice wavered slightly. Don't you? He pulled out his own phone and my blood went cold. Because I have a lot of questions about where you were last Tuesday when you said you were at work, but Jessica told me you'd taken a long lunch. Or Wednesday when you came home with wet hair at 10 at night claiming you'd been at the gym. He didn't know about John. Not yet, but he suspected something, and he was building a case. Get out, I said. This is my house too. Then I'll leave. I grabbed my purse, but he moved to block the door. We're not done talking. Yes, we are. I pushed past him and he grabbed my arm. Not hard, but firm enough to stop me. We locked eyes, and I saw something in his that made my skin crawl. Not love, not even anger. Just cold calculation. Let go. He did slowly, and I walked out to my car. Drove to John's apartment with shaking hands and told him everything. About Marlon's threats, about his documentation, about how he was building a counter case before I'd even filed. He knows something's off, I said. He doesn't know about you specifically, but he's watching me. John's face was grim. We need to be more careful. Or maybe I need to tell him. Get ahead of it. That's your call. But Bridget, if this goes to court and they find out about us while you're claiming he's the only one who cheated. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I could lose everything. The moral high ground, any sympathy, maybe even spousal support if Virginia's adultery laws applied. I'd gone into this fight thinking I was the victim exposing her cheating husband. But if Marlon exposed me first, I'd just be two cheaters destroying each other. That night, I stayed at John's apartment. We didn't talk much, just held each other while I tried to figure out my next move. Around midnight, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. I opened it and my blood ran cold. It was a photo of me and John walking together on Ravenna Trail, his arm around my waist, my head on his shoulder. The angle suggested it was taken from a distance with a zoom lens. And below it, one word, careful. I showed John, and his face went pale. Who sent this? I don't know, but I had a guess. Either Marlon had hired someone to follow me, or he'd been following me himself. Either way, he had proof now. Proof that I wasn't the innocent victim I'd been pretending to be. The war I'd started was about to get uglier than I'd ever imagined. The next morning, I went straight to the lawyer's office. Not the one I'd called before who couldn't see me for a week, but a walk-in consultation I found online. Her name was Patricia Monroe, and she had 20 years of experience in Virginia divorce law, which according to her website meant she'd seen every kind of mess imaginable. I sat in her office that smelled like old books and expensive perfume and laid it all out. Marlon's 2-year affair with Kate, the text messages, the photos, the move to D.C. that was really about being closer to her. I showed her the screenshots I'd taken, the evidence I'd gathered, and watched her face remain professionally neutral. This is solid evidence of adultery. she said, making notes on a yellow legal pad. Virginia is one of the few states where adultery still matters in divorce proceedings. This could work in your favor for spousal support and potentially asset division. Relief flooded through me. So I can... However, she interrupted, looking up with sharp eyes, I need to ask you something directly, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Is there any possibility he has evidence of you engaging in an affair? My throat went dry. Why do you ask? Because in Virginia, if both parties have committed adultery, it can cancel out as a factor. The court sees it as mutually at fault. She leaned forward. And more importantly, if he presents evidence of your affair while you're claiming to be the innocent spouse, it destroys your credibility. Not just for adultery claims, but for everything. The judge won't trust a word you say. I thought about the photo on my phone. About John's apartment where I'd spent the last 3 nights. About Marlon's threat that he'd been documenting everything. He has a photo, I admitted quietly, of me with someone. Doing what? Walking together. His arm around me. It's not explicit, but it's clear we're more than friends. Patricia set down her pen. When did the photo date? Last week, I think. Maybe the week before. And when did you discover his affair with Kate? 10 days ago. But the affair's been going on for 2 years. She nodded slowly. Here's the reality. If this goes to court and he presents that photo, the judge will see 2 cheating spouses. It doesn't matter that he cheated first or longer. It matters what you can prove and what he can prove. She pulled out a different form. My advice? We file for divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences, not adultery. You walk away without making accusations. He walks away without exposing you, and we negotiate a fair settlement. But he doesn't deserve fair, I said. He lied for 2 years, I understand. But Mrs. Reeves, do you want justice or do you want to win? Her expression was kind but firm, because sometimes they're not the same thing. I left her office with paperwork to fill out and a sick feeling in my stomach. I'd wanted to expose Marlon, to make him pay for what he'd done. But now I was trapped in the same cage I'd built for him. That afternoon, Marlon called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. We need to talk, he said, voice cold and professional. In person. I have nothing to say to you. Then just listen. 1 hour. I'll meet you at the corner cafe at 6. Come alone. He hung up before I could respond. I should have ignored him. Should have blocked his number and let my lawyer handle everything. But I needed to know what he knew, what he was planning. So at 6 that evening, I walked into the corner cafe to find Marlon already sitting in a back booth, 2 cups of coffee on the table. I slid into the seat across from him without touching the coffee. Say what you need to say. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. Not love, but something close to regret. I don't want this to get ugly. Too late for that. Bridget, we both made mistakes. I'm not denying that, but we can handle this like adults. He pushed a folder across the table. I had my lawyer draw up a preliminary settlement. We split everything 50-50. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts. No alimony on either side. Clean break. I opened the folder, scanning the papers. It looked fair on the surface, but I knew Marlon well enough to know there was a catch. Why are you being reasonable? Because I'd rather not air our dirty laundry in court. He leaned back, and there it was. The threat underneath the reasonable tone. I have evidence that would be embarrassing for both of us. I'm offering you a way to avoid that. You mean the photo? His eyebrow raised slightly. Among other things. I've had someone watching you for the last 2 weeks, Bridget. I know about John. I know you've been staying at his apartment. I know every coffee date, every lunch, every time you lied about where you were. My blood ran cold, but I forced myself to stay calm. You've been having me followed? I've been protecting my interests. He took a sip of his coffee. You want to accuse me of adultery? Fine, but I'll bury you with proof of yours. And Virginia law doesn't care who cheated first. It just cares who can prove what. We stared at each other across the table, 2 liars playing chess with each other's secrets. I need to think about it, I said finally. You have 48 hours. After that, I file first, and I file with everything I have. He stood up, dropped a 20 on the table for the coffee I hadn't touched. Your choice, Bridget. We can both walk away with something, or we can destroy each other and let the lawyers get rich. Personally, I'd prefer the former. He walked out, and I sat there staring at the settlement papers, realizing I'd lost before the fight had even really begun. I didn't sign the papers. Not yet. Instead, I called Amanda and asked her to meet me at the park near her apartment. I needed someone who knew the whole truth, who could tell me if I was being smart or just being a coward. She showed up with coffee and that look she got when she knew someone needed real advice, not comfort. We sat on a bench overlooking the pond where ducks were fighting over bread some kid had thrown. He's offering a clean split, I said, showing her the papers. 50-50, no alimony, no court. Amanda scanned them quickly. She worked in contracts for a living and could spot a trap faster than anyone I knew. It's not terrible. You'd get half the house sale, half the savings. That's probably $200,000 once everything's liquidated. But you'd be giving up your claim to his pension, and based on his military service plus private sector work, that's probably worth more long-term. She looked at me. Is there a reason you're considering this instead of fighting? I told her about the photo, about Marlon's surveillance, about how my lawyer said if we both had proof of affairs, it would cancel out and destroy my credibility. Amanda was quiet for a long time, watching the ducks. Finally, she said, "Can I be honest? Please, you both cheated. He did it longer, sure, but you still did it. And if this goes to court, the judge isn't going to care about timelines or who was emotionally neglected. They're going to see two people who broke their vows." She turned to face me. Is taking him down worth risking everything? Or do you just want out so you can move forward with John? The question hit harder than I expected. Because she was right. What did I actually want? Revenge against Marlon? Or freedom to be with John? I want him to face consequences, I admitted. I want people to know what he did. Why? So Diane will finally see her precious son isn't perfect? So your friends will take your side? Amanda's voice was gentle but firm. Brigith, the only people who need to know the truth already do. You, him, Kate, John. Everyone else is just audience to your pain. But it's not fair. No, it's not. He cheated longer and lied more. But you're not innocent either, and fighting this in court won't change that. It'll just make you both miserable and broke. She squeezed my hand. Take the settlement, get out. Start over with John. Be happy. That's the best revenge anyway, I wanted to argue. Wanted to say that wasn't enough. But deep down I knew she was right. I was tired of fighting. Tired of pretending. Tired of living in the wreckage of something that had been broken long before either of us had cheated. That night, I called John and told him I was considering taking the settlement. He was quiet for a moment, and I could hear him choosing his words carefully. Is this what you want? Or what you think you have to do? Both. Neither. I don't know. I rubbed my face, exhausted. I wanted to expose him. Make him pay. But now I just want it to be over. Then take the settlement. His voice was soft. Get out and move forward. With me, if you want to. You'd want that? Even knowing I'm just as much of a cheater as he is? You're not the same. You cheated because you were suffocating. He cheated because he wanted to have everything. He paused. And yeah, I want that. Want you. Whatever that looks like. The next morning I called Patricia and told her I was taking the settlement. She had me come in to review everything one more time, explained the terms, made sure I understood what I was giving up. Then I signed. Marlon signed the next day. The divorce would take 60 days to finalize, the mandatory waiting period Virginia required. In that time, I moved out of the house and into a small apartment near the flower shop. Marlon moved to D.C. to be closer to his new job and, presumably, Kate. We divided everything through lawyers and never spoke directly again. Diane called once to tell me I was making a mistake, that marriage was hard, and I wasn't trying hard enough. Sarah sent a text that just said, I always knew you weren't good enough for him. I blocked both their numbers. My parents, who I'd barely told about any of this, said they were sorry it didn't work out, but they just wanted me to be happy. It was the most supportive they'd been in years, and through it all, John was there. Not pushing, not demanding to know what we were now that I wasn't married anymore. Just there, solid and real, while I figured out who I was without Marlon's last name. The day the divorce was finalized, I stood in front of the courthouse staring at the paper that said I was officially single again. 7 years reduced to legal jargon and a judge's signature. I thought I'd feel relief or sadness or anger. Instead, I just felt tired and ready to start over. You must be wondering right now, did Marlon face consequences? Did Kate get exposed? Did I ride off into the sunset with John and live happily ever after? The truth is messier than that. It always is. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I heard through a mutual friend that Marlon's company had found out about his affair with Kate. Not because I told them, but because Kate's ex-husband filed a complaint when he found out. Turns out she'd been married too, and her husband was a vindictive son of a bitch who wanted everyone to suffer as much as he did. Marlon didn't lose his job, but he was reassigned. Demoted, basically. Moved to a desk position with less pay and zero travel. The irony of him finally being home all the time for a relationship that had thrived on distance wasn't lost on me. Kate transferred to a different office. Last I heard, she and Marlon broke up 3 months after that. Apparently, when you build a relationship on lies and stolen moments, it doesn't survive the harsh light of reality. Diane called me once after she found out about Kate, not to apologize for defending him, but to ask if I'd consider reconciliation since all men make mistakes. I told her Marlon and I were both better off apart, and she hung up on me. I haven't heard from her since. Sarah sent a friend request on social media 6 months later. I deleted it. As for me and John, we didn't last either. I know that's not the ending you wanted to hear. Trust me, it's not the one I wanted to live. But the truth is, our relationship was built on escape. On late nights when I needed to feel something other than trapped. On stolen hours that felt intense because they were forbidden. When I wasn't married anymore, when I wasn't sneaking around or lying or living a double life, we didn't know how to be normal together. We tried. God, we tried. But 6 months into dating openly, we both realized we'd been in love with the idea of each other more than the reality. We broke up over coffee at the same cafe where we'd had our first real conversation. It was sad but not devastating. More like recognizing that something beautiful had run its course. You helped me remember I could be happy, I told him. That's not nothing. You helped me believe in second chances, he said. Even if we're not each other's, we still text sometimes. Birthday wishes and the occasional funny meme. He's seeing someone new, a photographer like him who travels with him sometimes. They look good together in the photos he posts. As for me, I used my half of the divorce settlement to open my own flower shop. It's small, just me and one part-time employee, but it's mine. I do custom arrangements and teach workshops on weekends. I sell local art on the walls, just like I always imagined. I'm dating someone now. His name is Marcus, and he's a teacher at the high school near my shop. He's kind and funny and completely stable, which after everything feels like drinking cool water after years of being thirsty. We're taking it slow. I'm better at slow now. Sometimes I think about that night I walked out of dinner at Marlon's parents' house. How one decision spiraled into divorce and affairs and legal battles and pain. But I also think about how trapped I felt before that night. How small my life had become. Did I handle everything perfectly? Hell no. I lied and cheated and justified terrible behavior because I felt justified in my anger. I'm not proud of that. But I'm also not the same woman who sat at that dinner table suffocating under the weight of everyone else's expectations. I learned something through all of this. 2 people can both be wrong and both be victims and both be villains in the same story. Marlon cheated on me for 2 years and that was wrong. But I cheated too and that was also wrong. His wrong doesn't cancel out mine. The truth is, our marriage was dying long before either of us had affairs. We'd become strangers performing roles we'd outgrown. The affairs were just symptoms of something already broken. Should I have left before I cheated? Probably. Should he have been honest instead of lying for 2 years? Definitely. But we're human, and humans are messy and complicated, and sometimes we do the wrong thing for what feel like the right reasons. The real question isn't whether I regret what I did. It's whether I'd do it differently if I could go back. And honestly, I don't know, because as much as pain as that year caused, it also led me here, to my own shop, to independence, to understanding what I actually want instead of what I'm supposed to want, to Marcus, who sees me as I am now instead of who I was pretending to be. So yeah, I cheated on my husband who was cheating on me. We destroyed each other and ourselves in the process. There was no winner, no hero, no clean ending where the good guy triumphed and the bad guy got what he deserved. There were just two broken people who broke each other, and then had to figure out how to rebuild alone. If you've made it this far, thanks for listening. I know it's not a satisfying ending, but it's honest. And after everything, that's all I have left to give. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit that everyone was wrong, including you. Drop a comment if you've ever had to choose between being right and being free. Because I chose free, and I'm still figuring out if that was the right call, but at least it was mine.